Welcome to our 115th podcast. Today we're talking about AI with perspectives on the recent ACMP Change Orlando conference. What's one thing you can do to benefit from AI while retaining your own voice and humanity? Keep listening to find out. Welcome to Harmonious Workplaces, a podcast about corporate culture, organizational change management, and workplace behavior. Harmonious Workplaces was started by independent consultants to explore and challenge workplace issues and to build better ways of working. It's a blend of theory and practice, grounded in real-world experience, working with organizations of all sizes across a wide range of industries. If you own a business, lead a team, want fresh ideas about the workplace, or just enjoy listening to consultants talk candidly about how to make work more effective and more enjoyable, we invite you to sit back, relax, and dive in with us to Harmonious Workplaces. Hello, Harmonious Workplaces listeners. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm Rich Cruz, an organizational development consultant, and this is Ben Kleinman. Hey, Ben, how are you? You are our certified change management professional in the house, fresh, kind of fresh from Orlando, Florida. How are you, Ben?
Hey, Rich. Hey, everyone. Doing well. Thank you. Doing
Great,
well.
great.
Yeah.
So, Ben, last week we had Jenny and Katie, Jenny Posar and Katie Bash as guests, and a lot of our conversation was based on artificial intelligence in HR. And just a week prior to you were in Orlando at the ACMP, the Association for Change Management Professionals. We've thrown acronyms.
They have their. I know, that's fantastic. The ACMP just has their annual conference, and so this year it was in Orlando, and so they had, as you can imagine, a ton of things to say about AI and all of that. What was really nice is that it dovetailed a lot with what Katie and Jenny were talking about in terms of using AI thoughtfully and intentionally, and having some sense of keeping your own humanity at the center, and trying to recognize the boundaries of where AI is good and where AI is very effective, and where AI is still not quite at a place where one would just trust it and let it run and things like that. So yeah, we can kind of get into all that and speak to that. And I know, Rich, you've used AI quite a bit for information gathering and synthesis and creating a bunch of stuff. So it just seemed like there was a lot of fertile ground here.
Yeah. We're going to use AI in this podcast like we do every week. For those who don't know,
this is actually my avatar.
It's Robo Ben.
It is. It's the Benny 2000.
Right on. We do have a Herbie cartoon that'll be coming out pretty soon that has an artificial intelligence aspect to it. So
that's so cool. And we love Herbie.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who don't know,
do you know how much money we would save if robots were doing everything on just not having to pay for coffee?
Oh boy. It's probably right. Yeah. Except we're still using all the water, right?
Right. Yeah, I don't know if the offset is quite.
Yeah, what's the offset? Exactly, right. Maybe you take all the coffee that you were saving and you put that as your cooling mechanism. Iced coffee. Oh, there you go.
Iced coffee.
Iced coffee.
There you go.
That might, I don't know, Ben.
There you go. If this whole change management, harmonious workplaces thing doesn't pan out.
There you go.
Iced coffee for NVIDIA. I
love it.
Jensen, you heard it here first.
So, I saw a Washington Post article. It was last week that was actually talking about most adaptable versus least adaptable professions, right? And then those least impacted by artificial intelligence and most impacted by artificial intelligence. And it's actually a really nice interactive graphic. If you go to the Washington Post, you'll find it. And it was talking about, what if you take a look at the different types of professions that are out there, what professions are, again, most impacted and those that are the least impacted by AI, and how, like, what that job security is going to look like, right? And I know a lot of people are just like freaking out about this, like I'm going to get replaced by a robot, tomorrow or whatever,
Right,
right?
right.
Um, I will say that those people who are in kind of the design, the HR, um, the even like web design, those are like the most impacted and the most adaptable, and they actually seem to be if I'm reading this right, the ones that are really trying to keep that humanistic approach to work
Oh, wow. Okay.
seem to be the ones that are going to be very, very much impacted, but safe as long as you can, again, adapt. Right. So
Mhm.
there's some hope out there, folks.
It's wild you mentioned that. I was talking to someone who is in the marketing field,
Yeah.
and she was saying that she's as with almost all professions now, she's seeing so much change with artificial intelligence, and she said that her company in particular, she manages campaigns and brands and things like that for other clients and is somewhat of a design studio type of place, and they use AI a lot. Their CEO is very bullish about AI, uses it all the time,
Sure.
wants people to not just understand it, but become and maintain a level of proficiency and competency with it across the different, let's say, top AI models,
Right.
common AI models. And so it's really forward thinking. And she was saying that the gal I was talking to was saying that there's AI that she has been using to help her with her marketing work, but that she's using it only to a certain point, because after that point, it just hasn't quite gotten good enough, or she still feels like she has to maintain that human oversight, and after a point, it's just not delivering much benefit, so she uses it for ideation, she uses it for for the way she was explaining it was sort of starting some of her campaigns or brand ideation or things like that, but then she'll take it from there. And she was also noticing that specific to things that I think we've talked about before in terms of just the bare communications, it's very obvious when AI is writing something
Mm,
versus when a human is,
sure.
and there are certain words that stand out, or certain phrasings that stand out in her world that were just um, really obvious uses of AI. So that obviously doesn't fly either. The one thing that she did say that was really interesting was that as much as her shop uses it in general to get started and kind of help with their work, there are some clients that they have that say, "We don't want any AI whatsoever." And so then it's
Mm,
like a question of, okay, we're gonna go back to our pre-AI days ways of working.
mm, mm.
But it was just this we're in this weird stage of some people are all in on AI, other people are very much dipping their toes in it. Some people want nothing to do with it, and everyone is recognizing that it's here to stay, or at least everyone that's been using it and starting to benefit from it is seeing that it's here to stay.
Hmm.
And so it's just a question of, your typical adoption curve. How quickly are you going to start adopting it? And, are you going to be one of the laggards or the resistors at the very tail end that really never gets involved with it?
Sure. Sure.
And I think that's gonna wind up being a miss in most areas of our world these days.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm actually kind of glad to hear that she takes it to a point, and then she becomes that. I think we've used this phrase before, but it's worth mentioning again: the human in the loop, right? Because
Yeah.
she's using the critical thinking that may be missing from, how the pattern recognition from generative AI, right?
Right.
Even, if you look at any of those um, large language models, LLMs, right? Whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and my confession, I've got all three, which is just overkill, but still,
You need an agent to manage your
to
agents.
agent manage my agents. Sometime I'm gonna have a bot battle one time. They'll be like bracketed. Um, you'll notice the disclaimer is artificial intelligence makes mistakes, right?
Yeah,
Um, so when we look at from a quality perspective, it does not make sense to say, take something at face value that says it's going to make mistakes and just run with it, right? I mean, I think we
right,
need to still have that
right.
human judgment.
I can't remember exactly where, but I heard a really good expression and it was a little bit of a twist on that human in the loop. It was human in the lead. And so that
Mm.
was a way of just sort of saying we're using AI as a tool, much like we would use a hammer or
Mm-hmm.
much like we would use a pencil, but we're still the one driving the bus.
Sure.
And that was just a nice little distinction there.
Sure.
So that seemed kind of cool and just like a nice way of using it, and it dovetails a lot with what Katie and Jenny were talking about with us last week in terms of you do a lot with AI, but you still can tell a lot of times when AI is doing something, or when AI is just blindly filtering out resumes, or when you've seen a resume that's been heavily, heavily written by
Oh
AI.
boy. Yeah.
And there's still that need for having some person involved to maintain that connection. And they were sharing really nice examples of you can have a resume that hits all the keywords, but does it recognize when you find a candidate that maybe went to the same school that you went to or grew up in the same town that you grew up in, and there's some commonality that you can build off of to have a little bit of a conversation and see if that person is going to be a good fit culturally
Sure.
for your organization,
Sure. Yeah.
which I don't think I've seen AI do that yet,
I
at least not very well.
I can't say that I have either,
Right.
or heard stories of it. And I go to
Right.
several HR meetings. Although I will say that the it's interesting that um, even though there's this referral, where we talk about referrals to help people find jobs or to gain promotions or anything like that, right? The um, I was in a meeting last week, and they were like, "Well, yeah, but that that enters bias into the equation, and the AI actually is supposed to kind of flatten that
Mm,
level the playing field a little bit,
interesting.
right? So it's like, whoa, oh, so all that stuff we've heard about, trying to, you know, network your way into a job, it may not be as in vogue as it once was, just because of this level of bias that they're trying to counteract with the artificial intelligence.
Interesting. Wow.
I mean, that's all. I did. We'd have to do a little more research on that, Ben. But
Yeah.
I'm talking about the perspective of at least a couple of people that were in the HR space that were talking about that. So
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. So then you're going to start to see this battle of are we artificially, no pun intended, leveling the playing field just by having essentially a robot look at all of that versus are we trying to introduce some level of bias in a good way so that we find the right candidates
mm,
for our company?
sure, sure, yeah. It's there's this no bias is good, or yeah, like let's try to eliminate that as much as possible and be as objective as possible. But it's just not the way, and it's not the way that
I don't think that's the way life
works.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean, you, you're always going to have some bias
sure.
or biases, and as the key, I think, is recognizing what those are and trying to counterbalance them in a thoughtful way.
I mean, from a cultural standpoint, right? The idea of whether somebody aligns from a value, underlying assumptions and values
Yeah.
perspective is biased in itself, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's a hard one to correct because I'm not sure, how. I mean, I know that the artificial intelligence pretty much is looking at the job description versus the candidate and all that, but how does it parse out? what that cultural fit's going to be. It's a bit of a black box for me, and I don't know how people are interpreting that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, and so that that resonates with something that I was hearing and trying to probe a little bit more at the ACMP conference
Mm,
that maybe we can come to after a break, but
love it.
just this idea that the idea of AI becoming a much better sensing machine for your culture
Mm,
so that you don't have to do those manual surveys every month or every period or whatever that is, whatever cadence you have, that you have this AI that just somehow is much better at sensing and gives you much richer data. I haven't seen that yet, but we can talk more about that.
Yeah, I'd
Um,
love to talk about that. I have done a little bit of exploration to that. So, um, yeah, let's. Ooh. All right, cool. Let's do this, Ben. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's pick it up there.
cool.
We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I'm Hermie, the HR hermit crab. So, if you've ever sat in a meeting thinking, are we all talking about the same thing? I have a book that might feel very familiar. In my third cartoon book, Trust Fall Pratfalls, you'll find a collection of short, funny workplace moments. The kind that make you laugh and then immediately think, yeah, we do that. We cover things like unclear priorities, communication that somehow creates more confusion, leaders who mean well but miss the mark, and employees trying to make sense of it all. It's basically a highlight reel of how the heck did this happen? But each story also contains evidence based, valuable information such as simple ways to communicate better, practical ways to support your team, and small changes that make work a little more, well, workable. You can finish each story in just a couple of minutes and actually use the lessons the next day. Plus, it's a cartoon book, so you can leave it on your desk and be the envy of all your cubicle mates. Check out Herbie the HR Hermit Crab Trust Fall Pratfalls, available now on Amazon. Visit www.hermiehrhermitcrab.com or www.harmoniousworkplaces.com/Herbie. Oh, and if you see your workplace in here, maybe don't read it out loud in the next staff meeting. Make change your friend. Bye.
And we're back. Okay, Ben, you teased it out, man. What was going on over at ACMP here? And
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So the ACMP, as you can imagine, the change management world is awash with artificial
sure,
intelligence, and everyone is talking about it in good, bad, sideways, up, down, left, right, all of that kind of stuff. Some of the themes that, at least in the sessions that I was in, started to kind of pull through for me. There were maybe 2 or 3 that I think would be worth talking about, and one of those was from Tim Creasy, who is,
nice. Pro
Chief
sci.
Innovation Officer at ProSci. Very good, yeah, ProSci. He had a really nice way of framing his use of artificial intelligence and, um, categorizing it essentially as, what is his work? What is my work that I should do, must do, want to do that AI can't do or doesn't do a good job with?
Mhm.
What is the work that AI can do with me? And then what is the work that AI can do for me?
Mm,
And so you have these 3 categories, and it starts to help you kind of bucket where it's appropriate and helpful to use AI. So something like, I don't know, automating responses to simple emails, maybe that's something that you can train an AI agent to do for you.
sure.
Doing some basic ideation or client research or thinking through a design of a change strategy or a change implementation plan, maybe that's something that AI could do with you. But then having those one-on-one conversations with a client, that's something that you would do on your own
Sure.
because you can't just have your AI do that in place of you.
Right.
So those were some nice ways of thinking about it. I
Mhm.
think that kind of makes a lot of sense
Sure.
to me in ways, and it seems to marry up with what we've talked about on our show today so far and in prior conversations about just being very judicious and thoughtful about where AI can kind of take over things and where you still need to have some agency, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Your own agent acting
Right on.
on your behalf.
Right, right.
Um, there was the second thing I thought was sort of interesting was someone had said that AI intensifies the work. And I took that to mean essentially that AI is just speeding up and increasing the amount and the pace of everything. So if you're using AI to gather information, you're just going to get a lot of information much faster.
Mhm.
If you're doing something with AI, theoretically, you're able to do it much faster and hopefully at a higher level of quality. So it just speeds the pace up.
Mhm.
Um, what I was trying to understand and where I think that the speaker was going is that without having some level of bandwidth to manage that and some level of resiliency to manage that, people are going to burn out much faster,
Right.
and you're going to have an imbalance in terms of the work's moving faster, but the people aren't, and the pace is moving faster. Client expectations or stakeholder expectations are moving faster than humans can keep up. And so there still has to be some balancing there, and I'm not sure we've quite figured that out
Oh,
yet.
no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Humans have always wanted it faster than it was before. So
At the
that
same level of
at the
quality,
same level,
usually.
yeah, and there's a lot of frustration when there has to be rework or
Right.
anything that results in waste of time, money, or resources. Um, and yeah, so the expectations. I'm glad you mentioned that about that from stakeholders. It has gone exponentially higher. I need it. I need it. Like, why can't I already have it? you know, um,
Right. Right.
don't you have these tools? Why can't you deliver this? Like now.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that for sure.
And there's some stuff, I mentioned the marketing person I was talking with. There's some stuff that you can do with AI that's sort of good enough, maybe for a prototype
Hmm.
or internally if you're doing something, if you just need a simple way to visualize something with colleagues or with a working team, with a client, just to get something on paper to get the ideas flowing, to say this is what it could look like. You can use AI to generate something, or she was using AI to generate things very quickly that just started the conversation and got people thinking.
Sure.
And they're very easy to change those. But for sure, she was saying that those were not marketable, not collateral she would put out into the
Hmm.
marketplace. She was using them either internally or with her client, working team,
Oh, I love that.
but they were not finished product at all.
Sure.
And so that was another thing, like to your point, Rich, about things moving faster. You can accelerate some of those conversations in those design sessions and working sessions and whatnot. Prototyping becomes almost instant,
That's true.
but
Yeah.
there's a difference between a prototype and something that you would use in the workplace
Mhm.
for real, if that makes sense.
Yeah. 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 That
Yeah.
we've talked about SIP, right? The sequencing,
Yep.
iteration, and permutations
Yeah.
comes out of the printmaking, art world. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense to be able to create sequences very quickly, iterate on concepts, like you said, almost instantaneously, and see
Mhm.
some of that. But the output, the final output, would be something that you need to take some time with, and you need to have, again, a human involved in that, because that artificial intelligence is going to make mistakes. And we've
Yeah.
seen all kinds of weird things with people with three arms and stuff like that coming out of. I guess we have a lot less of that now than we did
Right.
when Dolly,
Right.
that was Dolly,
First started.
that's
But you
GPT
still
stuff.
see a lot of AI slop.
Oh, so
And
much. Yeah.
Jenny and Katie were talking about that last time, and that was definitely something that comes up a lot in terms of just it's not that it's not that it's using keywords that might be inappropriate for your culture
Mhm.
or not sounding right in your company's tone or your client's tone, but just that it's garbage work
Yeah.
and sometimes factually incorrect works, and you still see that quite a bit. Um, it it still surprises me that people are getting surprised by poor output, and so you hear all these situations in the news about people using AI for something that is very consequential and not checking it,
Oh, boy. Yeah.
and you would think, and maybe I'm just a little bit closer to AI on the day to day than some folks, but it just surprises me that we have just sort of gotten to a point where some people in very mission critical things are outsourcing completely
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
um,
And not checking the work.
not
Right.
not checking the work, not having someone else check their work,
Sure.
no guardrails.
Yeah.
Just yeah, it's shocking.
Yeah. Or
Um,
or or just using one artificial intelligence uh, unit to check the work of another one, and still having this similar problems, because
yeah,
it's just trying, honestly, sometimes it just tries to assuage you and say, hey, this is what do you want it to be? you know
right.
yeah. Yeah.
Or just giving, I think a lot of the AI tools that I've worked with and other people have said similar. I'm curious, Rich, what you've seen is just there's sort of an almost fakely overly positive interaction
Sure.
style or tone.
Hmm.
And so even if something is completely wrong, or even if you make a mistake or say something completely false, the way that it's responding to you is so overly positive that it's hard to feel like you're in a natural conversation
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
sometimes.
and I think that's why we have people who think of their think of whatever LLM they're using as like a sidekick or friend, or they have a very positive affect towards this
Right.
thing, because
Right.
it is saying the things they want to hear, and it's very
Yeah. It's giving
self-affirming.
them all those sort of positive feedback
Right.
moments.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways that I've heard it still it resonates with me is this idea that you want to think of whatever AI you're using as a new employee or as an intern, someone that is smart and has access to a wealth of information, but that doesn't necessarily know anything about your company or your goals or the level of quality that you need something at or the format that you need something output in. And so you have to be very careful about how you tell it what you need to get done, and then how you evaluate that, and then how you coach it essentially to make improvements and iterate through what you're trying to use it to do to build.
Yeah. Ben, before we go to the break, before we went to this segment, you were talking about the using AI for cultural assessment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What did HCMP do? What did you see or
There
hear there?
yeah, it's really interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. That was sort of the third point that I wanted to make
Yeah.
about what I was seeing. Um, a lot of people are trying to get to a point where they can have artificial intelligence essentially replicate all of the work that change managers do
Hmm.
to try to sense what's going on with the stakeholder population.
Hmm.
And typically, prior to AI, that was water cooler conversations, it was one-on-one meetings, it was smaller team meetings where you could have a little bit more intimate conversations in a trusted group, and it was pulse surveys, whether that pulse survey was once a month, once a quarter, once a year, whatever feedback cadence you used at that company,
Sure.
those were the tools. What I was seeing with artificial intelligence is that there's been a slight maybe assist to that, or I don't quite want to say it's an improvement because I'm not sort of seeing that, but what I'm seeing is that people or companies are using AI to try to say we can tap into when someone has taken a training, or we can say someone's in this training, can we give them a little micro survey to see how they're feeling about the training?
Sure.
Or can we gather some information about what they're seeing as they're maybe using a tool? So well after training, let's say they're using some new tool or following some new process, can we give them a little survey or pulse check, or just gather from the data how long have they been in the tool, using a tool? You know, what has their experience been beyond just sort of the login kind of checking, did they log into this tool,
Right.
sort of thing. It didn't seem very mature to me yet. It seemed like it was still essentially digitizing or automating some of the surveys that you would have done manually, and maybe inserting more surveys at a more frequent cadence,
Mhm.
and maybe you're truncating them so they're not the same questions every quarter. They're maybe more tailored to what you feel about a given tool or things like that. But it didn't feel like it was getting anywhere close to that personalized, really personalized change management, where it knows that I like videos and you like to read infographics, or it knows that I like to have a surface level 3 bullet overview and then start to dig deeper, whereas you like to just get the full research paper and dive right into the user manual and go. And
Sure.
it didn't seem to understand that. And then the last thing I'll say is that I didn't see anywhere where people were getting anything from AI as far as what is the feel of the sentiment?
Mm.
What are people thinking about
Mhm.
this, without asking that in a survey?
Right.
And if we're just asking it in a survey, that to me is not that much different than when we would have done that manually, except like I said, you can maybe start to tailor when you offer those surveys, or the types of questions maybe you can offer. But it's still surveying. There's no what I was looking for was some sort of magic behind the scenes, that we're using AI to sense check somehow the tone, or the culture, how people are feeling about a change, without having to specifically ask them on a certain
Sure.
cadence.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, can we take a quick break?
Yeah,
Have
because
I
I know you've had slightly, different uses of AI, and
Yeah.
maybe have seen it go in slightly different directions, so that could be really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Point
Yeah,
counterpoint.
right on. Okay. We'll be right back.
Oh, hi. I'm Hermie, the HR hermit crab. Today, I want to talk about the trunk of the knowledge to performance tree as featured in TD Magazine by Harmonious Workplaces. In our last video, I talked about the roots. Those roots include the inputs, including knowledge, experience, and institutional memory of the organization. But the trunk needs to function as a conduit to move that knowledge upward and outward towards the branches, or behavior enablers. These then turn the institutional knowledge into organizational capability, ultimately influencing performance. Organizational capabilities are the developmental drivers. These include things like formal and informal learning. Formal learning includes training programs, onboarding, workshops, and certifications, while informal learning happens through conversations, observation, coaching, and everyday problem solving. Honestly, some of the best learning at work happens 5 minutes before or after the meeting. Another important driver is strategic pairing. That means intentionally connecting experienced employees with newer employees so knowledge can transfer naturally through collaboration and shared work. And organizations also need to train mentors. Just because someone is highly skilled doesn't automatically mean that they know how to teach somebody else. Mentorship is a skill all by itself. Now, here's the big one: psychological safety. If employees feel afraid to ask questions, admit mistakes, or speak up, learning slows down fast. People learn better when they feel safe enough to participate, experiment, and grow. That's how the trunk gets stronger. Knowledge gets transferred between people, capability grows, and the potential for excellent performance increases. In our next video, I highlight the branches of the knowledge performance tree, our behavior enablers. Well, I better get going. Apparently, Boss Beta told everyone to take a mandatory time management course, but nobody scheduled the time to take it. Classic. Make change your friend. Bye.
And we're back. All right, Ben. So lots of talk over at ACMP Orlando about artificial intelligence, and then you when we in our last segment you were saying that we haven't really seen how AI captures a lot of those nuances regarding culture and people's sentiment about
Yeah.
training
Yeah.
and those right.
How they're feeling about a change
Right.
without having to ask, or with it hasn't replicated the one-on-ones. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that it hasn't made those redundant yet.
Right. So one of the ways I've been able to use artificial intelligence in some of the most recent change projects, right, has been, to record meetings, some of the one-on-ones, go through, even when I'm doing like screen capture, videos and stuff like that to show people how this works or whatever. Um, those recordings, that one of the nice parts about these large language models that I've seen is it's all about pattern recognition from a language
Mhm.
standpoint,
Mhm.
right? And so sometimes I, I found that it can be fairly perceptive from a language pattern um, recognition standpoint to be able to have some idea of sentiment regarding why somebody might be, and you kind of have to ask the question and frame the question about, well, do you think this person could be a change champion? Do you think this person is a and so you're adding a little bit of your own bias into it, right? Because you're using your own perception, and then kind of, so it's probably going to uh it's probably going to answer you in the affirmative to begin with, right? But you can also ask it to explain its answer, which is kind of nice because sometimes it can go back and kind of course correct itself and give you both, here are the positives, here are the negatives from this meeting. So I've had it given me some reading of the tone of leaders, when I'm in certain meetings, and then here's what some people have said about how they're feeling about the training, about whatever. Or can you, like when I'm in a training session, to uh, give it both the transcript and then some of my perception of what I've seen, and sometimes you can even then push into that the survey. So things like Notebook LM, which is a Google product, allows you to put related artifacts into a notebook, and then it can parse out some of that information. And you can do that with some of the other things too, depending on what the organization allows. But Claude has a little of that. ChatGPT, of course, and then Copilot if you're in the Microsoft environment. So I've had a little bit of experience with it. I would not say, again, I think the human needs to be in the loop to really fully understand that, and there's probably some statistical analysis that can be put into play if you can uh, take those survey results, if you're using like a Likert scale or something like that. But um, yeah, the language pattern recognition, I've found it to be helpful. I don't think it necessarily solves a problem, but it is an element that can be used.
That's really cool. And so you've seen it where, or you used it where you're able to compile a lot of different data sources, the meeting transcripts, your own, I assume you're keying in your own perceptions of a given
Right.
meeting or conversation or a series of meetings. You're pulling in the survey questions, and then you're having the AI tool help you analyze what's been said against what questions and start to pull out some themes. And from that, then you're able to get a sense of what the tone is, what the feel of the stakeholders are,
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So consider
It's
like
really cool.
if you have like a daily stand up, right? And you're
Yeah.
recording the daily stand up and usually use, if you're using Teams, you're getting
Yeah.
a Teams transcript and you might even get the notes, right? And you can put those into something and then you ask the questions of what kind of patterns does does the AI pick up regarding and then you have to give it the construct of you how are they feeling about the change, or would you do you see anything with regard to resistance risks, or are there other other aspects? You have to frame it right,
Hmm.
but having multiple different sources that you can throw into it, I think it does a fairly decent job of parsing it out. uh, and, I mean, that again, that's my personal
Yeah.
experience with it. I think it certainly needs validation, but I found that that's been helpful to make some decisions.
I was going to say that sounds like a really neat use of the tool to help you with looking at longitudinal data. Like if you're recording your daily stand up for a week or 2 weeks, you're going to start to get a sense, and the AI is going to start to learn different voices and different. It's going to get a better context and understand that, and then you're going to be able to have the tool help you see over the course of a month, 3 months on your project, how is the vocabulary changing, and then you're going to be able to sense check what the AI is telling you with your lived experience in those
Sure,
meetings.
sure. And if we're
Yeah.
using those pulse surveys, like you said, that we've historically used in change management, right? Like, we do a change readiness a questionnaire, and then we retest them, several times during the
Mhm.
project. Um, Not only can you see regressions, from point A to point D or whatever it is, right? You can see the progression over time, but you can also uh, use some of the anecdotes that you could pull from the meetings and sentiment that that's shared in that discourse, to see what might to kind of pull out some of the lessons learned as to why we might what that might correlate with why we might be seeing either a drop in adoption or velocity, or something to that effect.
Yeah, that does. I like that idea too of being able to use the AI to help you pull out quotes, because sometimes quotes, even if they're anonymized, can be very powerful when you're reporting or out to your either sponsors or across the group to stakeholders. You can say, this is a quote from your peers.
Right.
This implementation is you know, way off track. And here's, 3 quotes that validate that. Or, everyone loves this new process. It's saving them so much time. They're able to now interface with their clients one on one a lot more and have build better relationships with their clients. They love it.
Yeah.
And you're able to surface those types of things. And that can be really powerful because it sort of says this is what people are actually saying to your sponsors. It's not you as an intermediary making stuff up or trying to say I'm interpreting things a certain way. That's like the real thing. And then
Sure.
from an adoption perspective, if you have peers who are saying this is going really well, that can help pull along some of those laggards.
Yeah,
We've seen that work quite a bit, a lot.
for sure.
Yeah.
I know we're like right up on time here today.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
more that we could talk about.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear from the audience. How are you using artificial intelligence in
For
your
sure.
change projects, right?
For sure.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's working well? Where would you like to see it improve? All of that.
for sure.
If you got some wacky stories, we love wacky stories.
And any the wacky stories of we yes, we also have Hermie that could help you make that wacky story come to life.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
That's
you
right.
go to our
Yeah.
website and look up Ask Herbie. He'll create a cartoon or an animation, or we'll feature on the podcast. Any
Mm-hmm.
one of those things, you just let us know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Good
Ben.
stuff.
Well, Well, first of all, thanks everybody for joining us for this podcast on AI and change management. And we will have
Mhm.
probably more of
Mhm.
this to talk about. And
I'm sure we will not be able to get away from it.
it's probably
It's
right.
just there all the
All the
time.
time. Right.
I think, Rich, as far as the one thing that we were sort of teeing up at the start of the show, it's all about intentionality and making sure that with artificial intelligence, as you've said, it's so important to keep that human in the loop, to check what work is being done and to sense check that with your experience as a human in those situations to make sure that you're pulling out the right things and framing it in the way that you want. And yes, that's going to potentially introduce some bias,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that's part and parcel of being in community with other
That's
people.
right. That's the
You're going to
human
have that.
experience right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Ben, take us out today, man.
Thanks again, everyone. We appreciate it. Until next time, make change your friend.
Thanks for listening to Harmonious Workplaces. You can find all episodes, resources, and ways to connect with us at www.harmoniousworkplaces.com. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love your feedback. Please rate, review, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. And don't forget to add Harmonious Workplaces to your favorites so you're notified when new episodes are released. Again, visit us at www.harmoniousworkplaces.com.